Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be here in the presence of such a distinguished company. In fact, when our partners, the Nizami Ganjavi International Center, relayed the theme of the conference, the role of the academic environment in managing the sustainable development goals during the pandemic, my first instinct was to doubt that the academic environment can become involved at all during the pandemic, given that its primary responsibility is to formulate solutions for the medium and long term in order to prevent similar crises from manifesting in the future, rather than coming up with short-term answers. However, when I saw the list of participants, I realized that this online reunion served an important purpose, given that the invitees to this prestigious event are notable figures which share an academic background, who later went on to become head of state, and were therefore forced to make use of their experience as professors and scientific researchers to resolve some of the most stringent issues of the day, at the time when society itself was undergoing radical changes which brought about major economic and social crisis for many. To begin with the end, our experiences during our mandates as head of state were a success primarily because we did not limit ourselves to immediate solutions, but proved capable of conveying to the masses the essential idea that the social price that needed to be paid at the time was essential for accomplishing a higher purpose, which for those of us who served their country in southeastern Europe after the fall of communist regime was the replacement of dictatorship and planned economies with budding democracies and a functional market economy. In our post-totalitarian transition, our peoples accepted this sacrifice due to this very message of hope, eventually fulfilled, as today the countries of Eastern Europe are consolidated democracies with major market economies, just as Mauritius has proven a model of democracy and economic efficiency for Africa, and Ecuador has for Latin America. The COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the exemplary civic responsibility shown by billions of people worldwide who followed the advice of medical professionals, even while governmental messages were limited to stay indoors, wash your hands, wear a face mask, keep your distance, or in the most fortunate of cases, only barely managing to address the critical health care of economic issues. Now, 3 months on, we can see that it was a very lack of the consistent message to take the problem of sustainable development, which generated social tensions, can easily evolve into more or less controllable revolts, such as the ones buffeting the United States and several Western European countries over the past week. Coincidentally or not, 2020 should have been the debut of the decade for action of the Sustainable Development Goals, set in the broader framework of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, aiming to improve upon essential yet diverse problems such as poverty, literacy, access to water and hygiene, social inequality or climate change, have not diminished in importance throughout the pandemic. Also, newsreels focus primarily on broadcasting information on symptoms, infection rate, and death, to count above mentioned critical issues to aggravate, left untended. Perhaps surprisingly, the pandemic has highlighted the great shortcomings in the field of healthcare, economics, education, social protection, and human rights across the majority of developed countries, which only goes to show that existing institutions advance a warning system that allow for the fail-safe solution in times of crisis. Developing countries for whom the developed world serve as role models to aspire to can now legitimately question their chosen future path. And just as legitimately, then they ask the member of the academic environment why they chose to keep their long silence instead of publicly tackling and exposing these deficiencies, which is only 3 months were painfully highlighted by the virus itself. Our answer to the pandemic must not be separated from our endeavors to implement the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We must merely re-evaluate and prioritize those aspects we expect to worsen after the state of pandemic is lifted by the WHO CDGs 1, poverty, 4, education, 6, access to water and hygiene, 10, combating inequality, 12, responsible consumption and production practices. And lastly, SDG 16, securing peace, justice, while adequately managing the security institution. Revitalizing these critical goals can only be accomplished through solidarity and international cooperation. The very things that have been made much more difficult after states faced with tragic events during the pandemic began to self-isolate and to only seek solutions for their individual salvation. The immediate solution for the smoothest possible recovery have to include a better planning of public and private investment in sustainable development in order to create a resilient infrastructure, the strengthening of our social protection system, and an increased investment in uncovering underlying causes and minimizing existing risks. What can the academic environment offer to better manage these goals? Vision, strategy, and specialized instruments. Ongoing qualitative and quantitative research has helped identify the extent issues and the number of people affected. We now know that the coronavirus pandemic has had a major impact on the broad swathe of the global population, not only from a medical perspective, but also economically, socially, culturally, educationally, psychologically, emotionally affecting the future of democracy and of human rights. In order to provide solutions that facilitate sustainable development, the academic environment must create its own agenda and refuse to acquiesce to the pressures of the financial or political milieu, which so often has been proven in the past to seek to only further their own interest. In order to forestall a return to prior situation or worsening of existing ones, as happened after the financial and security crisis of the early 21st century. In accepting this given mission as a glue holding social solidarity together, the highest consideration of the academic milieu must be the interest of citizens. Before presenting their own plan to rebuild contemporary society found adrift, academic researchers must first set their own affairs in order. Ethical and moral issues must become paramount to the academic milieu. The scientific research must persevere in its search for truth instead of profit. In any of later's many guises, financial, political, or of public perception. Scientists must refrain from using sound bites crafted by communication specialists such as the new normal, a vague phrase signifying nothing and everything at once. And they must reject the cliché of political correctness which only rebranded societal events as slightly more attractive without tackling their underlying causes. Balanced SWOT analysis of the globalization project is long overdue. One, the distance is itself from equally damaging utopian or dystopian approaches. An impact study that highlights the correct proportion between social cost and benefits, as well as the preferred distribution thereof, given that all the crises of the late 20s, early 21st century have only served to exacerbate the divide between wealth and poverty, hollowing out the middle class, the pillar of representative democracy. So badly it is now becoming apparent in even the developed nations. Sustainable development can only be achieved in a society founded on moral values instead of profit. One capable of minimizing greed, wastefulness and arrogance while promoting faith, mindfulness and decent living standard. In this society, the academic milieu must act as a guarantor which safeguards that technology does not affect our natural right to privacy, that artificial intelligence or automatization do not dehumanize the social fabric, that the medical progress is strictly controlled along ethical lines, that education is again predicated on imparting knowledge rather than skills and abilities, and that culture is not replaced by entertainment. The alternative is what we have been witness to over the last few days on our television screens and across the social media platforms. Peaceful manifestation condemning the revolt and abuse of authority by police, hijacked by violent groups aiming to provoke the general chaos. For Europeans, this seems like a déjà vu on the image of the street clashes between far left and far right anarchists in 1930s Germany, which ultimately led to fascist and communist dictatorship across the old continent. We in Western Europe are thankfully inoculated against the flagell of this type of dictatorship And we are aware that this kind of societal evolution cannot occur again today. This does not mean that we must not be mindful of the danger of that threatened representative democracy coming either from the ranks of the protestocracy, a violent movement bereft of ideology, leadership, or an avowed membership which aims to institute a generalized anarchy, or from unchecked authoritarianism which threatens with the armed intervention of the military forces.